Wedging is pain, to be quite honest with you, and you'll spend a lot of time doing it. Let's see how much clay this is. This is about 1.5 pounds of clay right here. So what you're going to do with the wedge is real simple. There's two ways to wedge. One is real basic. We're going to use that one. There's another one that's very fancy called spiral wedging, which of course I'm not going to show you because I've never figured out how to do it. But basic wedging is real simple. You're going to take your clay, some clay that fits nice in your hands here, and you're going to push down with your palms like this away from you. Push, and you're going to pull back like this. You're going to push and pull back, push and pull back like this. And this is just basic wedging. Now, one trick to this is when you begin, a lot of beginners do this. They push, and the clay just gets wider and wider and wider, and then it becomes not very useful. So the trick to this is when you push, not only push down, but you also want to push inward. Let me show you. Start again here with my piece of clay. Push down and get it started. Now when I'm pushing, I'm also pushing here, wedge toward you. I'm actually pushing the sides in also. I'm controlling it here like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you'll notice here, as I wedge, notice that we're losing moisture. You can see the moisture beside my sweat. You can see the moisture on the table. So the more you wedge this clay, the drier it's going to get. And we really want this clay to be pretty soft. And so what I normally do is wedge this clay about 50 times. So let me go ahead and just wedge it a few more times here. You don't have to be in a hurry to do this. You do this at your own rate. We'll say this. I'm good for about 1 or 2 pieces of clay to be wedged. And then I have to do something else for a second because it pretty much whips me. Alright, so let's say that when I'm finished wedging, the clay looks like this. So now what I'm going to do is I want to make it into a nice ball by simply slapping it down into the shape I like. And the nice thing about this is it's a little bit different muscle movement, so you don't get as tired. So here's a nicely, if I'd done this 50 times, this would be a nicely wedged piece of clay. Okay, so what I've got now is I've got some clay that's all wedged up here, wedged 50 times each. Just want to show you the relative amounts here. I have not huge hands. I have relatively small hands, but this is 1 pound of clay here, and you can see it fits in my hands nicely. It's about the size of, I guess, a small apple. Here's 2 pounds of clay, and then here's 3 pounds of clay. Now that's more than you would think. It's like when you go back to my scale, and my scale goes up to 22 or 24 pounds of clay. I have to almost laugh. That's a whole bag of clay here. What I suggest you start with, if you've never done this kind of thing before, is start with the amount of clay that feels comfortable in your hands. For me, that would be a little less than this, about 1.5 pounds. This too little clay can be difficult to wedge, strangely enough. I don't know why, but it seems like when I wedge, my hands hit the table here. So I find that not very much fun to do. So generally, if I'm going to work with 1 pound of clay, what I'll do is wedge 2 pounds of clay, kind of even it up as best I can. I'm going to take my cutoff wire and just cut it in half. You can see no air bubbles in here at all. This is well wedged clay, and then I can make this into my little 1 pound ball. The reason that you measure out the weight of your clay is so if you're building something or throwing something, that you can have the same size object. For instance, if you make bowls out of 1 pound of clay, that you can make them very much the same size. So there's 2 1 pound clay lumps of clay. So pick some clay that's easy for you to work with. Honestly, this is a lot of clay for me. This 3 pounds really works me out, wedging this 50 times. And then supposedly if you go past 3 pounds, you should probably use a different type of wedging called spiral wedging. There's lots of demos on YouTube about how to spiral wedge, but I've never actually figured it out. Maybe somebody will show me in person one time and I can figure what's going on. Anyway, that's wedging clay and getting it ready to work. So that clay is now ready to work with. All right, so now we've wedged clay and we're ready to work. It's about 90 degrees out here. It's August 1st in Texas. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. It's already 90 degrees. Fairly humid, and so I'm gonna quit for the day. Probably might come back out after the sun goes down this evening and do some more work. I want to say this about one more thing about wedging. Wedging is hard work. What I found is that I wedge about 4 pieces of clay and then I work. What happens is if you get real, and people will tell you different things on this. One thing they'll tell you is to go ahead and wedge up a bunch of balls of clay so that you can get a rhythm going when you're working. And that's great if you're not going to get tired out. And again, I'm 54 years old, so I do get a little tired doing this wedging the clay. So especially in the heat. So what I do is I found about four balls of well wedged clay is enough that tires me out a little bit, lets me sit down and start working, throwing on the wheel, hand building whatever I'm ever going to do with that clay, and it lets me go ahead and get some work done. If I wedge up 8 pieces of clay, I might not feel like working, on all 8 pieces of clay before I get tired. So the main thing, one of the main things I would tell you, especially if you're a little bit older like me, is make sure that you don't wear yourself out. In other words, pace yourself well. Figure out how long you're going to be able to work. That's based on temperature, it's based on age, that sort of thing, and work at a good pace. Change up your jobs a lot. You don't want to be wedging clay for 3 or 4 hours and find that you're all worn out and don't want to do any more work. I think it'd be better to wedge a few pieces of clay, get a little bit of work done. If things are going well, you can stop and wedge some more clay. It won't throw you off your rhythm and tempo that much. Anyway, it's getting hot and it's fairly humid out here for Texas, so I'm gonna go in for today. Now, what we'll do next time is we'll go ahead and show you how to roll out some slabs, do some work with soft slabs, and how to roll out some coils, and how to do some pinch bowls. And then we'll show you how to put all those together to make some little monsters that I like to make. Anyway, till next time.